You know what really makes us mad? Is wasting money on CDs with only one or two good songs.
Yeah. Tell them about punk.
What's up, posers? Welcome to Punk Lotto Pod, the game where no one wins. I'm your co-host, Justin Hensley.
I am your other co-host, Dylan Hensley.
Please follow us on all social medias. It's Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Punk Lotto Pod. We have an email address that's punklotopod@gmail.com and a website, which is punklottopod.simplecast.fm. Please rate, review, and subscribe to us on iTunes, Spotify, and Stitcher. With those out of the way, today we are joined by another special guest. So why don't you tell us who you are and what people may know you from?
Okay, hi, my name is Anne, and some people know me as Aunt Fran, and I am, that's an old, my old punk rock name, and I am from The Machine Shop, which is a distro website. I sell music, art, t-shirts, lots of different things, kind of a conglomeration of many things, and the Aunt Fran, my little secret name, that came from a zine that I used to do many years ago, punk rock zine, and that was fun. So that's basically a little bit about me.
That's cool. Yeah, I wanted to ask you about the Machine Shop. I'm not entirely sure how I wound up following your account on Instagram, like before I'd even asked you to join, but I saw that you have a ton of stuff from Kepi Ghoulie. Like records and artwork and shirts.
So Kepi is my really good friend, and Kepi is really the reason that I started the Machine Shop. The Machine Shop is like, in some ways it's a distro, but it's also like a personal web store for some artists. So Kepi's official web store is in the Machine Shop. So he doesn't have like an official web store anywhere else. So about like 6 years ago, he and I were talking, and I was like, you have no web store and you have all this stuff and it's great and everyone loves it. Whenever I wear your shirts anywhere, like everyone loves it. Even like people that don't know your music, they just love your art and your designs. Like, let's get that stuff out there somewhere. And he was like, all right, like, build it and let's do it. And so a friend of mine and we started this as like a web store for Kepi, and then we also were doing screen printing as part of the business as well. And then Kepi and I were like, hey, let's like have other artists too. And it started mostly with artists that are like related to Kepi, friends of Kepi, people that he toured with, friends that, like Kevin Seconds and like Greg Tonato from the Bouncing Souls, like their solo stuff, not really their big time band stuff, because they had they have venues to sell like 7 second stuff and bouncing.
Yeah.
Like they don't need me to sell that stuff. But they were doing like side project stuff. So I started getting some of their stuff of their solo things and their art, and like Vic Ruggiero from the Slackers, just like all these people that Kepi is connected with. And then like little by little, then suddenly people were like, hey, I'm kind of a small artist that I don't have anywhere to sell my stuff. Do you want to take it? And I was like, sure. And then I just started getting stuff from like smaller and from friends and local bands. And then I started saying like, let me get some stuff from distros too that I like. And so pretty much like everything I sell is stuff that I like.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the site now, and like I see a lot of the original art in here. Yeah, that Kepi section is huge, and that's probably how I wound up following your account. Is I was probably following Kepi, and like an album came out maybe, and then because I think Eccentric Pop presses a lot of his records now.
Yes. So Eccentric Pop, Travis is another good friend of mine, and so I don't like release anything. I'm like I'm sort of a weird kind of like middle person. Like I get things to people. So Travis and I have like a business kind of relationship. For a while, we were doing like membership club for the Kepi and the Groovy Ghoulie reissues. So people would buy like 3 releases and they would get like some little extra fun stuff, and they would like save on shipping and all that if they bought like the 3 package membership. So like Travis and I work together a lot, and I also sell. I've been starting to like do all the pre-orders in the U.S. for Stardom Records, and some other pre-orders for other labels. I think there's like a little bit of a void because Interpunk is falling apart. So everybody is sort of looking for like somewhere to get their stuff out to that's not Interpunk.
Yeah.
So I've been kind of picking up some like very, very minor slack from that.
Well, that's cool. And we'll let you plug like the links and all that stuff at the end. But definitely, if you're a fan of punk rock, go check out some of the stuff in Ann's store, because there's some good stuff in here. Speaking of Kepi, they just posted the fest schedule, and he's playing on Friday, and he's like one of the first. It's the full band set on Friday, and it's one of the first bands the entire day that I'm like, I really, really want to go see. Like, there's other bands before him that I would like to see too, but like he's the first one that I'm like, I got to make sure I'm there for that. And he overlaps with like the second band I was most interested in seeing, so I was like, oh no, I'm gonna have to either leave early from Kepi or miss the beginning of.
Kepi? I haven't looked at the set, the times, and is he playing like solo and with the copyrights?
He's doing full band. I guess that's with the copyrights on Friday, and then I can't remember which day, but he's also doing a solo acoustic set another day. Okay. So, I mean, I've seen him most years. He's played Fest, so I definitely, he's always one of the most fun parts to see at Fest. So.
Yeah, he's super fun, and he's a really great person, and I love him so much, and I really owe him so much for like trusting me to like start selling his stuff in the machine shop. And he's a great friend, and like I know everybody says like Kepi's the greatest and all. It is totally 100% all true. Anything you've ever heard, like that he's such a great person, it's all true, and he's just lovely.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah. So I guess we can get into the show, unless Dylan, you had anything pressing you really wanted to bring up.
Nope. Nothing new. Nothing urgent.
Yeah. All right. So this is the show where, using a number generator and the Rate Your Music Punk charts, we choose one album and one EP at random to discuss. And for this episode, we got the year 1980. And it's funny because last week the episode we recorded was for 1981. So, as usual, we like to look at the charts. So, right off the bat, is there anything that jumps out at you as far as like that's a big deal? Like, Dylan, what do you think?
I mean, within the top, number one off the bat, Remain in Light, Talking Heads. That being said, it's not my favorite Talking Heads record. But with maybe a narrower lens on punk, I mean, you've got Fresh Fruit for Rotting Vegetables by Dead Kennedys, Los Angeles by X, and Is This Real by Wipers. Those are all such huge records, and all really formative to me, I think.
The Dead Kennedys, especially for me, were like a very important punk band for like getting in like in college is when I really started to get into like classic punk and hardcore and stuff like that. And so the Dead Kennedys were like the first one that I like really latched onto, next to maybe the Misfits. And it's funny, like
Yeah.
I'd listened to the Dead Kennedys so much that I'd almost like burned myself out on them. I was like, I don't love them like I used to, but I went back and listened to Fresh Fruit. And I was like, nah, this record is a monster of a record. Like, it's really good and really strong.
Yeah, that's my favorite Dead Kennedys, of course. I mean, I would be surprised if that's not everyone's favorite of theirs.
You know, I used to say Plastic Surgery Disasters was my favorite, but now going back, I think this Fresh Fruit's probably my favorite.
Yeah, I think out of all of their records, that's the one that holds up the best.
Let's see. Scrolling down a little bit. That X record, Los Angeles. That's the first full length. Is it the first release overall?
It's not the first, and they had a single before.
Okay.
But that is the first album.
Yeah, that's the one that like introduced the world to X, and it's got some big stuff on there, like Johnny Hit and Run Pauline, and Your Phone's Off the Hook, Nausea. Los Angeles, the title track. Yeah, like that's a great record.
Yeah.
Last week we actually talked about the second album, which was Wild Gift.
Wild Gift, yeah.
And compared to those two back to back, I think Los Angeles is definitely the standout.
I definitely agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Wild
think it's
Gift
like
really took a weird step back.
Yeah, I mean, I think this album is perfect, like from beginning to end. Even like Soul Kitchen, which you're like, wow, they actually do that song really well. I think it sounds great. And I like everything of theirs up to a certain point, but nothing is as like crystalline, like so great as this, just from beginning to end.
Yeah, like I'd say this one and Under the Big Black Sun are probably my two favorites by them. And even More Fun in the New World's great. Yeah, Ain't Love Grand is when it starts to get a little weird. That's when they start doing that 80s thing. Isn't that the one without Billy Zoom?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think he was on that album, but this was his last. That was his last album.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but it is starting to get a little, like, weird.
Yeah, it is. It's just a strange sounding record, too. Like, I don't think late 80s production suits X's sound very well. Like I think their style works better with the warmer, rockabilly-esque, vibe that the early records have.
Yeah, and also like I love them and I love their sound, but I think the harder they try to be like a regular band, the less successful that is.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that's also why John Doe's solo career is mainly consisted of like country. So, because that's like his strengths. After X is Wipers. Is This Real? After listening to a lot of Wipers recently, this might actually be my favorite. I wanted to say Over the Edge a few weeks ago when we were talking about one of the year that album came out, but I think Is This Real might be my favorite Wipers record.
Yeah, I guess this whole year, 1980, is a lot of it when I was going through the list was like, this is my favorite record of this band. This is my favorite record of this band. And definitely Is This Real? Like right from the start, Return of the Rat. I mean, it's so great.
Yeah, I do still, I would say Over the Edge is my personal favorite, but Is This Real is such a like visceral, like perfect record. I would say, if you were to introduce someone to punk, that's one of the first, maybe like first 5 records you give them. I would say that in Los Angeles, honestly.
Yeah, I guess to give them a wider spectrum of punk to listen to, especially from the 80s. On this list, we actually added in the new wave section, new wave albums, just to get an idea of what else punk adjacent had come out. And number 10 on this list is Elvis Costello and the Attractions. And Anne, did you recently see Elvis Costello?
I did, yes, just on Saturday night, a couple of days ago. Yeah. Elvis Costello and his band The Imposters, which is basically the Attractions, except for one guy that's different. So
I'm not super familiar with Elvis Costello's stuff. Dylan, you've listened to a little bit more than I probably have.
I have not listened to this album. I did hear a couple of songs from it. Actually, did something a little different for this episode. I put pretty much all of these albums, or at least what's on Spotify, on a big playlist and kind of shuffled them all. So I got a really big, broad taste of punk in 1980, punk and new wave in 1980. So I heard a couple of songs from this one, and it was more interesting. It was more appealing to me than I expected. Elvis Costello has always been hard for me to get into past the second album. But what I did hear from this record, I might reassess the next two.
Yeah, I mean, I like Elvis Costello. I'm not one of those people that's like, he's the greatest thing in the whole wide world. I really enjoy listening to him, but I feel like I'm like still would consider myself like a casual listener of Elvis Costello, and I like a bunch of songs on this album very much. But for me, Elvis Costello is one of those artists that he has so much stuff, and I can kind of distill him into like a really, really, really big greatest hits box set in my mind. Maybe like a 6-album set.
Right.
Yeah. And I could fill 6 albums, 6 sides of stuff with what I really, really, really like of his, and everything else is really fine up to a point. Once he started doing like band, I don't even know how to describe whatever that is. Whatever that stuff later is, I don't even, that falls out of my zone of interest. But yeah, he was really great live. Like I said, I saw him this weekend. It was really, really fun. But I would never like ever put him under the punk. And they're not doing that here on this list. But sometimes he does show up on like a punk box set.
Yeah, I think it's probably because of the first record, mainly because it came out right when like punk was exploding in England. So like there's another artist, Reckless Eric. Like he gets tied in with like the '77 punk boom too, and he's not really.
Well, and it's an interesting thing.
If records probably that connection.
Yeah,
he almost gets grouped in similarly to how Tom Petty almost was right at the beginning of his career, because punk was such a new thing. People had I guess maybe a broader definition of what it was, but which he pretty much immediately rejected that label. But
which he probably, his music, I don't know. I guess he's an interesting guy. I could see how someone would be like, he's kind of punk, but it kind of, maybe if you're looking at punk as being maybe more like Patti Smith or I guess some of the more like straightforward rock oriented leaning bands. Like if you put Tom Petty next to the Ramones, like no. But speaking of the Ramones, there's a Ramones record in 1980, right?
Yeah, End of the Century is on the list.
Let's see what's on that.
It's way, way down the list, though.
Yeah, that's a funny thing about the Ramones. I've noticed when we've looked at a lot of these charts, everything past the second album, I feel like it always ends up on like not even in the top 40, which is really surprising.
That is weird. Now, I mean, End of the Century, maybe I can understand. Like, that's even that some people would maybe not put in as a punk album. I mean, they're the Ramones, though, so of course they're punk, forever.
Yeah. What's on that record? My computer's being very slow for some reason. Oh, there it is. Yeah, Rock and Roll Radio.
Yeah, it's the Phil Spector produced album, which was contentious. I don't think it's a record that the band even really liked. Probably more so just because of the experience of recording with Phil Spector. Yeah. But I think they ended up being pretty unhappy with how it sounded.
I love the album. If we're talking about like punk and all that stuff, I mean, it's certainly like stepping many, many steps away from like the first album. But I think Ramones are my favorite band. I should just say right up front. So I love almost everything they did. I think they have one terrible album, but even right up to the end.
Which one do you think is terrible?
I personally despise Mondo Bizarro.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it's just garbage, and I mean, like I said, this is my favorite band, and I love them so much, and I saw them many, 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 many times. But that album is it's really just insulting, I think.
But I know you say it's your least favorite, but it does have Poison Heart and Strength to Endure.
Yeah, I knew you were going to bring up Poison Heart. Even a bad album can have a good song.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So
we've talked about that a lot. We've talked about that a lot with the Ramones and how even their worst albums have like at least one or two really great songs on them. So.
Yeah, but Cabbies on Crack is just the worst. That's my feeling.
Let's see. Anything else on this first page? Man, there's so much good stuff on here.
Yeah, I just want to say I don't know how if I'm supposed to speak out of order or how this works, but I was listening to one of your last podcasts, and the fall came up, and I wanted to just because they're up here. Mm-hmm. Pretty close to the top, then that really surprises me because the Undertones were on the list way farther down, and the Circle Jerks were further down, and a bunch of other super favorites of mine were, and I was kind of surprised that the Fall were so high, especially because this is being limited to the United States, not Raiders. So I was surprised to see the Fall that high. Now I super love them. They're a big favorite of mine, and my record collection, one entire shelf of records is just the Fall. That's how many they have, and that's how much I love them. And this is a really great album of theirs, but they're not for everyone. When you were talking about introducing punk to people, I would never ever bring the Fall into the mix. And until I was sure that someone was ready to handle that.
Is there the Fall is a band that I've never what I've heard has not made me want to listen to them. Not to trash one of your favorite bands. Just it's just some element or couple of elements just maybe didn't click. Is there a record that is a great starting point with them?
It's a good question. It's so hard because they're just they're so loose and wild, and they're another one for some people maybe they're you could put together a really good greatest hits kind of thing and it would be so perfect. I feel the first four are give you the real sense of what they are, and if you really really want to drill it down to one, then I would say I'm wondering if this Grotesque is the one. I don't know. I'm thinking maybe just start at the beginning with Live at the Witch Trials.
Yeah.
And like I said, the first four though I feel kind of really just roll into each other, and then after that it's even with the Ramones, I think of records as sort of sets, the first two, the next two. I think of little pairs. Mm-hmm. For them, the first four are kind of a set, and then things change a little bit for the next bunch and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I was looking at all their albums to see what the scores were and what the most popular records. It looks like
This Nation's Saving Grace is probably the one that most people would say is their best.
It's a 3.89, and it's got the most listen ratings of 5,760. So it's definitely the most.
It's a great honestly, it's crazy that the band could have this many records. There's not one record of theirs I don't like.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, some are better than others, and I listen to some more than others, but I don't think anything is bad.
Yeah, cool. Some of the songs I heard maybe one or two songs from Grotesque that came up on my big playlist that appealed to me maybe more than any anything else I have heard from them. So I may dive in on that one, but
yeah, they're like I said, they're not for everyone, and it's maybe I should make a Spotify playlist of the stuff that I think you should hear, and I'll let you know when it's done.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
I'd love to hear it.
I have like 10 billion Spotify playlists. So.
Yeah.
I do that a lot. I'll have like a song will come up on, maybe like a playlist, or I'll hear it when I'm listening to a record and I'm like, oh, I really love this song. I need to build a whole playlist just starting with this song.
Yes, I do that all the time.
Hundreds of playlists. And
yeah. I'm going to keep talking. I hope that's okay. So on the list, like immediately after the fall is the jam sound effects, which, I love punk, of course, but I like a lot of other things that float around it. I still, I always say that I have like an umbrella, and like I have all this stuff under my umbrella, and like, is this under my umbrella or not? So like the fall is under my umbrella and the jam are under my umbrella. Just different parts of the umbrella. But this is my favorite jam album, which I guess some people think that's horrendous to say that, because they love the first album the best, or whatever. And it's weird for me not to love their A band's first album as the favorite, but and this is like I don't even remember. Is this their fifth album or sixth?
Yeah, you were right. The fifth one.
Yeah.
I just think this album is just genuinely beautiful, and it makes my heart happy, and I don't even know how to explain it. Maybe it was the first of theirs that I got, and for me a lot of times the first of the band that I got was my favorite.
Yeah,
but I think it's great. I don't know if you guys are that familiar with that one, but I love it.
I'm not super familiar with it. I have heard some of it. I think I'd like it. I think I'll ultimately end up liking that one more than Setting Suns. Definitely. I'm not sure how it will compare to the first three, which are all great records in my mind. And honestly, I do have trouble ranking those.
Yeah, we talked about This Is the Modern World on one episode, and I genuinely love that record a lot. I mean, I love the first three, but for some reason I've never really explored past the first three. I think it's just timing. Like, I've just never had a chance to do it all. I did listen to a little bit of sound effects this week. Actually, I did it yesterday on a jog, and then I got poured on in the rain, so I had to take my headphones out so they wouldn't short. But so I didn't finish that record. But looking at the charts, or look at the ratings for that one, it shows a 3.82, which is their second highest. So you're not in the minority as far as liking this record.
I feel like it's one of those albums that it is a full album, for like as like a not a story, but that the songs are meant to be like together and they make sense together.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. Man, I always think I'm like ready to move on to our albums, but I keep seeing things like immediately. I'm gonna run a couple off real quick. Number 14 is Bauhaus in the Flat Field. 15 is The Cure's 17 Seconds. 16 is Swell Maps and Jane from Occupied Europe. Dylan, you said you really liked that album, right?
I really didn't know anything about Swell Maps. I've heard the name, but those songs kept coming up on my playlist, and I am super intrigued. They're definitely a band that I want to get familiar with. I also, earlier on this list, we skipped over it, but it was a recent discovery for me. The Feelies' first album, Crazy Rhythms.
Right.
I listened to that just kind of on a whim a couple of weeks ago, or maybe even longer than that, and absolutely loved it. So this year has some really great stuff and some really great like recent discoveries for me. Like I've always appreciated them, but Wild Planet by the B-52s is an incredible record.
That's my favorite B-52s record.
Yeah, me too.
It's so good. That's Own Private Idaho's on that one, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, man. That one and the first record are phenomenal. Like, it's amazing what they were doing, in Athens, Georgia, of all places.
And I'm really glad we included New Wave on this list, because that record, Freedom of Choice by Devo, I just can't stop it by the beat. I mean, there's stuff that is excluded if you just focus on the punk, strictly punk albums from this year, and those are critical records. I feel anyone who considers themselves punk would be interested in them. So
yeah, for sure. And I have to mention the Cramps because they're like my second favorite band after the Ramones, and that album is so great, and I love them so much.
Talk on the Cramps for a little bit. Where are you like a fan of the entire discography, or do you kind of fall off after a point?
I stuck with them the whole time. Yeah. There's one album I thought was shaky. Look, Mom, No Head. I don't listen to that one. Like, I never ever listened to that album. But I listened to everything after it and everything before it. So that's sort of like a middle time. But yeah, like Flame Job, I think it's a really great album. And I think their last two albums were very good too. I mean, of course, the first few, like probably the first three. Psychedelic Jungle is my favorite.
That's my favorite too. I had that one, and like I had some weird like reissue where they combined Psychedelic Jungle and Gravest Hits on a single.
Oh yeah, I think I have that on like a CD.
Yeah, that's what I had, and like those are like my Cramps albums I listen to. But Songs the Lord Taught Us is amazing as well. To be honest, I've never gone past that because a lot of the isolated, just random tracks I've heard from later records were all, I don't know, a little gross lyrically.
Yeah, he started to get like less subtle.
Yeah.
But he's Lux and it's okay. I give him a pass for that. I don't know, maybe because I already love them. And also another band that I saw many, many, many times, like as right up till the last, when I could see them, and always amazing live. Like you never knew what the heck you were gonna get into seeing them, and he never disappointed.
I actually share a birthday with Lux Interior.
Oh, that's right.
He's my punk celebrity birthday matchup. Of course, by 40 years, but
I don't think I have a punk celebrity. I have like regular celebrities, but I have one really cool one, which is Linda Carter, Wonder Woman. So,
that's badass. Yeah.
Mine are like Tupac.
That's cool.
I want to say Ultimate Warrior.
Yeah.
The other one I always remember. What's his name? From Laurel and Hardy. Stan Laurel.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's a cool one. Not really punk, but yeah.
Yeah, I think I also have Jennifer Lopez.
I don't think I have anybody else cool. I can't remember my list, but it was nobody cool.
The rest of mine aren't cool either. And I mean, Jennifer Lopez is cool or not, depending on who you are, what you think. So. But I'm back to Cramps.
And Geronimo is my other one. Sorry. That's probably the coolest one.
Oh, yeah.
It is. If you haven't listened to Smell of Female, that's really, really great. It's live at the Peppermint Lounge. But all the songs that were released on that recording were ones that weren't released on albums. So you're still getting like stuff you didn't know before.
Okay.
And it's great. And Date with Elvis is really great too.
Yeah, I just need to get into the later stuff and just set aside the lyrics are gross, but it's also kind of the point of the band. It's not.
It's camp. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is camp. Yes, and it's like a shtick after a while, but it's still got that sound, and it's still got Ivy. I mean, she's so brilliant and awesome. Right. So.
Yeah.
Well, we probably should move on, but there are still even more records that I feel like need to be at least name checked. There's the Black Album by The Damned. There's Sandinista by The Clash.
Stiff Little Fingers, Nobody's Heroes. I'm so mad that most of Stiff Little Fingers records are not on Spotify.
Yeah. Cockney Rejects. I don't know if you guys but I love that album.
What else?
Mathematic.
U2's Boy.
Yep.
I ran into our album here.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny, once you get to the second page, it kind of starts to fall off a little bit, though.
There were a few like way down that I personally love, like the Ravillos and Nicky and the Corvette.
Oh, there's a Madness record.
Yeah, UK Subs.
Yeah, there's. Oh, I just passed one and I lost it. Oh, that Simple Minds record that popped up on Shuffle, and it was way
better than Simple Minds.
Oh yeah,
that you're used to.
Yeah, that one. It starts with "I Travel." Is that the one?
It's Empires and Dance. The song that I heard, I was like, wow, this is more like Joy Division than like Simple Minds. Like, it was darker sounding, and yeah, it starts with I Travel.
Yeah.
I was like, I thought of them as the Breakfast Club band, but
yeah.
That may actually segue perfectly into our album.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
So let's do that. So for this episode, we got number 27 on the punk charts, and it is the Psychedelic Furs and their self-titled album, The Psychedelic Furs. Through some basics real quick. Psychedelic Furs were formed in 1977 and are from London, England. This was released on March 7th, 1980 on Columbia Records and recorded at RAK Studios. The personnel on this record is Richard Butler on vocals, John Ashton on guitar, Tim Butler on bass, Vince Eli on drums, Roger Morris on guitar, and Duncan Kilburn on sax. The record was produced by Steve Lillywhite, who is in 1980 also produced U2's Boy, XTC's Black Sea, Peter Gabriel's self-titled album, Ultravox's 3 Unto 1, and The Brain's self-titled album, as well as like an assorted number of other singles.
Wow. So
that dude was busy.
Yeah.
We won't mention the later years with Dave Matthews Band.
Oh, yeah. I looked at a lot of the later stuff, too, yeah. So this is their first record, and there are actually 2 versions of the album. There's the original 9-track UK version and the 10-track US version. The US version removes the song Black's Radio and adds the song Susan Strange and Soap Commercial. And it also rearranges the track listing a lot. You can tell immediately that Susan Strange and Soap Commercials sound completely different from the rest of the record.
Yeah.
They were definitely recorded in a different session. And I disagree with the choice to remove that song, Black's Radio, because that song's great. But they did re-release it on CD in the 90s with the original track order, and then like with the US tracks added to the end, which I believe is the Spotify version that I was.
Yeah.
So I mentioned Simple Minds as the Breakfast Club band. I'd always thought of the Psychedelic Furs as the Pretty in Pink band because they did the theme song for that movie, which it was their song first, and John Hughes named the movie after the song, and they re-recorded it for the album. That was my real extent of my knowledge of the Psychedelic Furs. Just that song. I love that song, but I didn't know too much of their other stuff. I didn't even know they were...
This album came up on the chart for this, or like you didn't know anything really too much before we like started thinking about talking.
So like I knew who they were. I knew their overall sound. I don't think I'd ever listened to a full album by them. I'd heard other songs by them, but like I didn't even know they were a British band. Like there's something about their sound that it just didn't connect as British in my mind. But yeah,
I was maybe a little more familiar with them. I had, before we picked this album to review, I have always been a little interested in psychedelic furs. I mean, at least over the last couple of years, and so I have kind of like dabbled in some of their stuff and shuffled some of their, I guess their top songs on Spotify or whatever. So I knew fully what to expect going into this record. And I would say, I guess I was familiar enough with them that I was really stoked when Love My Way showed up in Call Me By Your Name. When people kept talking about that Sufjan song at the end of that movie, I was like, but Love My Way is the better song in that whole movie. So I was really excited to listen to this record for this episode, and just off the bat, I love it. I think it might be my favorite of theirs, and I didn't expect that. I think I might have expected maybe Talk to be my favorite. What did anyone else think of it?
And you can go first, since the way we've been doing the show with the guests is we have a list of upcoming episodes we do, and we send it out to the who we want to be on the show, and they get to choose which ones they want to talk about. And you chose this one, so I was wondering what made you pick this one in particular.
Well, I think I chose today because I wanted to pick stuff that I was familiar with, and I knew like both things, and I liked both of the things that were on 1980s choice. So instead of talking about something that I like really didn't know anything about, so that's why I picked this, and I like this album like very, very much. And my psychedelic first like experience in my life is that I probably was introduced to them around, I'm going to say probably around 83. That makes the most sense. And I had a great radio station where I grew up that played a lot of what we called new wave at the time. But they played punk too. But it was before anybody started using the words like alternative. And they weren't using the words modern rock or anything like that yet. So it was WLIR. I grew up in New York, and this was like a Long Island radio station, and somehow they were like just getting all these great records that nobody else was playing. Maybe like over in California, like K-Rock was playing it, and then over by me was LIR. And also I think the movie Valley Girl has one of their songs, Love My Way, actually, in it.
Oh,
and so Valley Girl, that movie was my very first date ever. I went to see Valley Girl. And so like that's like a really important like touchstone in my life. And 1983 is really important kind of like explosion of music for me. So definitely was introduced to them So that was before Mirror Moves came out. So anything that they had released before that was getting played on my station. Like, so the original version of Pretty in Pink was always played on that station. Love My Way. But interestingly enough, that station did not play anything from this album at all. So my introduction to them was from like Talk Talk Talk, Forever Now, and then of course Mirror Moves, and then blah 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 from there. So I was introduced to like a little bit more of their like poppy sounding stuff. So I think that if I had been introduced to this album first and then I heard that other stuff later, I probably would have hated the other stuff.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow.
Because I would have been like, ew, this is like really lame. But I was introduced to that stuff first, and also like I was a teenager. You know, it was like a moment in time. So I love Mirror Moves. I think some people like bash it who like this first album, but I think it's great for what it is. Yeah. But so I went backwards and eventually discovered this album. Probably a while later, years later. And then I really don't know I don't know that I really like understood what was going on. So I think I kind of forgot about it. And then eventually way later, I came back to it and I was like, oh my goodness, this is great. So I also think it's their best album, like just cohesively and like it's just really successful in doing what they're trying to do. And I like the UK version, like the order better. Black's Radio is great song, and like I feel like the first 3 songs are like kind of moody, and then the next probably the next 5 songs are like more like upbeat and like even like punky, so I think it's really an interesting combination, but I think it's great.
I guess I'll state my opinion as well. I love this record. I kind of thought I would. I loved the song Pretty in Pink, and I've always liked the other songs that I've heard, but they were always, I don't know, whenever I was like, that should be a good episode. Like, before we even, got to it, before I even listened to it, I was like, something about this band has always been, it's been, programmed in my mind that they are a good band, and most people like most of their records. So, I was like, I'm excited to get into this record. And I was surprised at how moody it is. Like, the album starts off with the song India, and it has a really long intro that's just kind of noisy, spacey, dark sort of sounding stuff. And then it kicks in with this I don't know, bass and guitar pulsing, just this kind of, it is post-punk. I guess that's really the thing to describe it. And his kind of raspy vocals, I kind of associated them with I guess as a UK Replacements, just
I can kind of see that, yeah.
More in tone than so much the straight up sound, but vocally they're not that far off.
I saw someone describe his voice as cigarette stained.
There are some like Bowie sort of vocal deliveries, and if Bowie like smoked a pack a day, which he may have, I don't know if he did or not, but
maybe if he just smoked a lot more.
Yeah.
I kept seeing a lot of you're just reading reviews of it just to see what people were saying, like at the time when it came out. A lot of like Bowie, Roxy Music, Doors, Velvet Underground, kind of like mashup. But I saw tons of people saying he had sort of a Johnny Rotten delivery, which I never ever thought about until I started, and I read it like maybe 10 times.
Yeah.
I don't know if I think that.
Maybe more pill.
Yeah, maybe that's what they were kind of leaning toward.
Yeah, I want to say I wrote down like there was a song that he kind of sounds a little snotty on, but nothing crazy.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. I mean, I even got a little bit of like the jangly guitars that you hear a little bit in the Smiths and the Cure, but there's like a thicker layer of distortion to it. So like. And then the bass work is really driving. Oh, and the saxophone. Like
the sax. Gotta talk about that.
It's so like it adds this whole layer to it that just like I don't know, it just makes it almost it's like the cherry on top of this record. Like these songs were great already, but then throwing in the saxophone, it's just like takes it to another level.
I wanted to say the saxophone on this record is I would say it's the perfect way, like the perfect example of how you can use a somewhat atonal, not totally, not the best intonation on the sax in a punk band and a post-punk band, and it be exactly what the song needs. Like his voice and the saxophone, to me, both sound not exactly in key with the guitars and bass, but they're in key with each other, and they're like just like both the same amount of off key from the rest of the band, and it just like kind of dovetails together in this like great like almost dissonant choral effect, and I love it.
Yeah,
and I wonder, it's got to be intentional. I mean. It sounds almost like the sax that Duncan Kilburn was playing just to Richard Butler's vocal tracks. Like,
are you familiar with like X-ray specs?
Yes.
Yeah.
So of course, the sax, different kind of, intention and music, but still sort of has the same kind of like not quite right, but totally perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even thinking then, we actually covered Germ-Free Adolescence a couple weeks ago, or probably 2 months ago at this point. But, yeah, and that was another perfect example of like an atonal saxophone that's not... We've covered a lot of art rock bands from this era, like Flipper and MX-80 Sound, and even some much, much lesser known bands who use the saxophone, and they just drive me crazy. Like I can't stand how they use the saxophone. And like this is what you want. Yeah, this is what I want.
They tried to do, maybe.
Yeah. It's like it's the perfect use of saxophone in a non-ska setting.
Oh yeah.
A non-soul, like a non-R&B setting, like in a like an 80s, 90s, and beyond, like punk setting. This is the perfect use of the saxophone for me.
I'm gonna interject something to that. Tying into that Swell Maps album that was on the list, they have some saxophone also going on that album in a great way. So you should check that out a little bit more. Also, have either of you seen the Psychedelic Furs live?
No.
I want to say they played in Phoenix not too long ago. I'm going to look it up and just see if I'm right.
Well, I finally saw them. I had never seen them, and I saw them about 2 years ago, and they were really fantastic. I definitely recommend that if you get a chance to go see them. And the sax live. The guy who plays sax with them live has been with them. He wasn't on this album, but he's been with them since maybe the third album. His name is Mars Williams. He was a saxophone player in The Waitresses.
Oh.
Yeah, awesome. And like I said, he's not the guy on this album, but he's the one who's been with them all this time, and he plays live with them, and he's so great. And it really gives that just little extra something live. I mean, the whole band is great. And Tim, and they're all great, and then the sax, and it's really, really joyful and fun, and they sound good. He sounds so good. So yeah, I definitely recommend checking it out.
What's the lineup now? Is it how many of these members are still in it?
So it's Richard and Tim, the brothers.
Mm-hmm.
And then that guy Mars Williams. I don't know where John Ashton is in the world these days. I guess he's still playing with them.
Yeah, I'm trying to look.
I cannot remember. I don't know that he is, but they have a really great keyboard player. She's been playing with them for a while now. So, but yeah, like it's, the brothers definitely like anchor it, and then this Mars Williams and the sax is so
according
cool.
According to Wikipedia, I see just Richard and Tim are the two still in the band from this record. The others are Paul Garisto, Rich Good, Amanda Kramer, and Mars Williams. Yeah. So I don't know when the other members like fell out of the band, but I guess that's something I should look into more. But
try to see them if you can.
Yeah, they're still active. Like they
have a new album, I think, coming out. I thought I just read like this week.
Oh wow! Oh, let's see if that's.
They kind of play the '80s circuit. That's how I've seen it described. I think they have previously played at like one of the casinos around Phoenix. They haven't played in the Phoenix area since I've lived here. I think I'm just thinking of Jesus and Mary Chain did play, which weirdly enough they played they played like Comerica Theater. It was a pretty big venue. So
this is something else I took notes on too, though. Talking about seeing them live. So right now, like still, even as of like the last like 2 weeks when they play, I was like taking a look to see like how often they play stuff from this album.
Mm-hmm.
And they still regularly on almost every set play at least 5 songs from this album.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
And like they always play the first 3 songs, and they almost always do "We Love You," which I think is probably my favorite song on the album.
Yes.
I score I give each song a score as I'm doing it, and "We Love You" I think is I give it a 5. Like it was like my favorite track on the album. You texted me.
Yeah, I was gonna say I love the first 3 songs on this record, but it really kicks into gear with "Fall." And that's what I texted you. Like that song had like just ended as I was listening through this album, and I texted Justin. I'm just like, God damn, Fall.
And I was like, what? Because it's so out of context.
Fall, Pulse, and "We Love You." Those 3 songs in a row are just a killer string of songs. It gives me almost this like Stooges, kind of like pulsing, like upbeat rock and roll feeling, and yeah, "We Love You." That is easily the best song on the album.
Yeah, they still play Fall and Pulse. Also, I was like taking a look. Like they're not like right current rotation, but they played them within the last couple of years.
Nice.
what did y'all think of the two U.S. tracks, Susan Strange and Soap Commercial?
Susan Strange didn't leave as much of an impression on me, but I really like Soap Commercial.
Yeah. Like, I don't know, when they came on, I was like, oh, this is very odd. Like, it just, like Susan Strange especially, because it has that, is it like a wood block or something in there? That clicking noise? I don't know what you call that. I don't know, Dylan, you're the musician, you might know, but it's almost like you hear it in like almost a bossa nova like type music. And,
is it like
no
that sound? I can't remember.
It really does sound like a wood block almost. It's a percussive. Yeah, I don't know, but like I need to look at the US track listing again to see the arrangement, but I feel like the way they rearranged it I wouldn't say it ruins the flow, but the UK version sequencing is the superior sequencing.
Definitely. Yeah, they put Susan Strange like third on the US. Yeah. And then like Fall and Pulse are like disconnected, and I like them together, and like Soap Commercial break. Yeah, and Imitation of Christ is weird. Yeah, it's weird. It's really weird.
Yeah, throwing Susan Strange in there right after, man, that is so weird. Yeah, why would you move Imitation of Christ to the B-side, and it ruins that flow from India to Fall? Or, no, India to We Love You. Like, no, We Love You's on the other side, but Pulse. Yeah, it's. I'm wondering why that song was put in there. If it was like the U.S. distribution was like, no, we need it feels more like them trying to make a radio single.
Mm.
Yeah, it's probably the most radio-friendly sounding songs from this group of everything that was released between the two versions. Speaking of the U.S. version, I did see a copy of the U.S. version at a record store the other day, and I was really bummed. It was just too rough condition for me to buy. It just had too many scratches. I wasn't gonna be irritated with it. And it was the kind of record store where it was maybe more like a big used bookstore. So you can't just like go put it on the turntable and check those scratches and make sure it'll at least play halfway decently.
Yeah.
I didn't want to take the chance on it.
I also don't like that the US album cover is black and white instead of the pink cover.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what were they scared of something? I don't know, but the pink just makes it pop. Like, it's such a better cover.
And the pink is that original, like the way they're, the whole layout is very like evocative of the Velvet Underground.
Yeah, for sure.
And then the other one is just kind of like,
I like the green in the logo. I actually would have liked that the original cover was pink and green. Like, I think that would have
like really a Marvel supervillain. Or the Hulk, I guess. But
there's I always associate them with this. It was a box set. I used to when I worked at Barnes & Noble. There was a box set called like Left of the Dial that we had.
Yeah, I have that box set.
And like I always associated them with that box set. I mean, probably because of pink and this record's pink, and then they're on that box set too. They may be one of the first songs. I want to look at the track listing on that. Left of the Dial.
I was actually just listening to that. All of those CDs in my car the other day. I don't think it's the first one.
No, it's not even the first disc.
No. Yeah, I don't remember. This is weird. All That Money Wants is on.
Which album's that off of?
Yeah. That's like sometimes I don't understand. Like, why did they make decisions like that? Like, because that's like what I don't even know what album that's from. It's not from.
It's from. I think it's like a rarity. Like, I want to say, because it's actually included on All of This and Nothing, which is a compilation. And I want to say that song is probably just like maybe a non-album single, like a B-side, or it was the B-side for Birdland.
No, the B-side was Birdland.
No.
So I think it's a single to sell the best of. Because you know how a lot of those best ofs will always have like one new song that you've never heard?
Yeah.
typically they're just an outtake from a recording session.
But why put it on that box set when most of the other stuff on the box set is like a kind of like a known song by a band?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, that's a really great box set, though. I have to like.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. I'm wondering if it's on Spotify as a playlist, because a lot of times they just get thrown on there, or even people just create.
Yeah, like somebody makes it. Yeah, because I do stuff like that too. Like I said, I have 10 million playlists. And that radio station that I was talking about, LIR, that I listened to growing up, I made a couple of like LIR related, playlists. Like they used to do like a best song of the week, and people would call in. So I have a couple of like goofy, and I of course have to put them in like order of each week that they were. The song of the week and all, because, we're record music nerds, and that's what we do.
Well, how long have we been going on this album? I think we've actually been going for, oh, wow. Woo, we're over an hour in, and we haven't even talked about our EP yet. So, unless anyone has any huge notes on this record, we should probably rate it, right?
So, what's your rating scale? I don't know.
Okay. We'll go ahead and go first, but our scale we do between 0 and 5. But we also do the quarter points between, so you can do like a 0.25, 0.50, and 0.75 as well. I'm gonna give it. I originally wrote down a 4.25, but I think I'm gonna up that to a 4.75. I'm like, I'm not a 5-star man yet, but it's a couple more listens I could be, probably. But I genuinely loved this record. What'd you think, Dylan?
I think I was initially thinking 4.75, and maybe objectively that's what I should rate it. Because when I was listening to it, I thought maybe the sequencing wasn't perfect, but then in talking about it and then looking at like those groups of like 3 songs, and I think I'm gonna go with a 5-star. I'm a 5-star man.
All right. Well, I am going to give it a 4.5.
Yeah. Like looking at the sequencing, it does. I wish, like, I was looking at the vinyl sequencing, and "We Love You" is on the first track on the B side. And like I almost wish it could have made it on the A side, but
yeah.
But of course, there's just not enough time to get them all on that one side. But that's why you listen to the CD or Spotify version, and then you don't have to worry about flipping it. Well, cool. Let's talk about our EP. So we got number 16 on the EP charts, and it is Teen Idols and their EP "Minor Disturbance." Formed in 1979 from Washington, D.C. This is their sole EP. It was released December of 1980 on Discord Records. It was recorded at Inner Ear Studios. And the personnel on this record is Nathan Strejic on vocals, Jordy Grindle on guitar, Ian Mackay on bass, and Jeff Nelson on drums. The record was produced by Skip Groff, who actually recently passed away in February of this year. He ran a record store in Washington, D.C. called Yesterday and Today. He also helped produce quite a few other D.C. hardcore bands, like the Minor Threat demo and SOA's first EP, which is the Henry Rollins pre-Black Flag band.
Yeah.
And Ian and Jeff, of course, went on to form Minor Threat. And Ian was also in Fugazi and Embrace, and Jeff was in 3 and Highback Chairs, and Nathan was briefly in Youth Brigade, only recording their 1981 demo. So, Teen Idols. What did everybody think?
You go first, Anne. I feel like I'm talking a lot.
Oh, no, you're not.
All right. Okay, I'll go first. I mean, of course, I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great. I feel like if you don't love it and you love punk, that maybe there's that's sort of a weird disconnect. You know what I mean? Because it's really fun. It's great. It's the beginning. It's the reason that Discord Records started to release this record. So I mean, it's like majorly like a cultural important. I said touchstone earlier. I'm saying it again. It's like a cultural touchstone. It's the beginning of like a whole great, awesome bunch of things. So I think it's great, and I'm happy we talked about it and we're listening to it again, because it's not like I regularly say let me go listen to United Minor Disturbance, it's not that often that I'm listening to it.
Mm-hmm.
So I was really happy to go back to it, and I listened to it like many times in a row just to get a feel for it, and just I think it's really fun and great, and I actually think the lyrics are really good, like some hardcore of its time and or hardcore now, the lyrics are kind of stupid, but especially the lyrics to the first song, like Teen Idols, like we're as idle as teens can get. I love it. I think it's super great.
Yeah, Dylan?
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those ones that I've heard and didn't listen to a ton early on, so I don't have a strong attachment to it. But obviously, very strong, good feelings towards it. Just, I mean, for being, the beginning of Discord Records, being pre-Minor Threat, which was an extremely formative band for me getting into punk and getting into hardcore. This album cover or EP cover is so iconic, just with the X'd hands and that Teen Idols scribbly font. I was surprised listening to this, though. I think I always associated it more, or remembered it sounding more like Minor Threat, especially like the early Minor Threat demos. But there's a pretty strong Clash vibe to this EP that I didn't remember, which was very welcome.
Yeah. I didn't quite pick up on that Clash, but I could also see, so like 1979, 80, Washington, D.C. hardcore was like what? Bad Brains? Like it was essentially the band before they moved to New York. And then Minor Threat kind of shaped the scene as it went. But this is one of those EPs that if you've ever watched a punk documentary, you've heard about them talk about this record like nonstop. So this is the fame. Anytime Ian Mackay's on a documentary,
the story of tracing 7-inch like single sleeves and
pulling them apart, and then tracing them up and gluing them back together and cutting it themselves, and the album cover with Alec Mackay's X'd up hands, which became the symbol of straight edge. And I was reading about this because for only a short little EP, there's a ton of information about it. They originally weren't planning on releasing it, and they recorded it, and then instead of putting it out, they went on a tour of the West Coast where they were like supposed to play with the Dead Kennedys and weren't allowed into the venue because they were underage. And then when they got back to Washington, D.C., Jordy, I guess, fell out of the band because he was like dating a pretty devout Christian girl at the time, and Jeff was like a super vocal atheist, and so that they just kind of didn't get along with that. There was like Jordy dropped out of punk, and so by the time this came out, or the band decided to break up, and they had like $600 left, and their choice was either to split it up amongst the members or use it to press the record. And so they went ahead and put the money towards the record and put it out because they wanted just to at least document it. And it's I guess it's the one. Even though Bad Brains were there in DC first, I feel like this is the one that starts it all for DC hardcore, like especially the Discord bands, and that stretches out.
Yeah, and Bad Brains, of course, they're DC. I think they also are super associated with New York City, and so like DC is like their roots. But I feel like I almost feel like Bad Brains belong to New York more than DC.
Yeah, I would say so too. And just like Henry Rollins is from DC too, but you don't associate him as a DC guy. You think he's LA, Black Flag, and all that. So
yeah. Although, and speaking of Henry, I like the little shout out, like "Thanks, Henry."
yeah.
In the first one, it's so cute.
Yeah,
I love those little clips of Henry and Ian like working at Haagen-Dazs.
Oh, that's the greatest, and also just that like their little ex that they weren't actually using that for straight edge, just for being young, like underage, and completely like snowballed from that.
Yeah, it has a weird recording quality to it, and I guess it is one of the early inner ear records. And I think the guy Don Zienta, the guy who like recorded like half of the hardcore records from that time, he was like his thing before was like he recorded Celtic and folk music primarily.
That's really funny.
He wasn't like in this scene at all. He was just like a space that he liked them. He thought they were doing something cool, but it wasn't like his scene or anything. So this record does sound a little weird. I think like the drums, I don't know, they have this weird sound on them. Like they're dulled, like they're just kind of like thudding. They don't like quite ring out like drums normally do.
It's probably like I would guess that's probably a leftover 70s drum recording kind of technique. I mean, in the 70s, everything was super isolated and dry as possible. And like the drums, the toms probably had the resonator heads taken off. And I mean, it doesn't sound like everything was close mic'd, but that would have been the standard technique up to that point. So yeah, everything is very dead and flat sounding.
The bass is pretty heavy sounding though too. Like it definitely sounds heavier than Minor Threat's bass work. And again, that could just be another recording thing. But the songs themselves, like it's hard for me to fault because they were teenagers, and this is hardcore during the beginning. But I don't like love the songs themselves. I think I'm more into like the attitude and like just what they were going for than so much like the individual tracks themselves. I mean, it's like 9 minutes long and what?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, like I said, the first song, I actually think the first song, if you look at the lyrics, are actually like really like introspective in a way. But then they get, like Deadhead is like silly, it's like it's like exactly what a punk rocker is supposed to sing about, how we hate deadheads, you know what I mean? Like that one's like silly. And even like Fiorucci Nightmare, like for you guys, you're younger, so like Fiorucci maybe doesn't mean anything to you, but like that's that was like a fashionable thing at the time, so like it makes sense that they like chose that specific type of thing to sing about, you know what I mean? Because that was like what like fancy people were like involved in wearing, whatever.
So it's like a brand.
Yeah, like a Gloria Vanderbilt or
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm looking at some pictures on Google. Yeah,
like that's the kind of thing that like
it's that kind of 80s like crop top.
Yeah, it's just like what like regular like Goonie people were like thought was like cool at the time. So yeah. And also it's interesting that the song Fleeting Fury, like it like already they're like talking about how like the first wave bands are like already like complacent and over, and it's like only 1980. Like, okay, and it's so, and I think that just shows how like fast everything was happening. Like even like sidebar, but like Sex Pistols, like when you think about how fast the beginning to the end was, and like when you're like, oh my gosh, like Pill was already like happening.
Yeah.
Like like it just doesn't. It's sort of, you would think like, oh, that lasted so long, but it's like 2 years.
Yeah, we talked about Did we talk about the first public? We didn't talk about it specifically, but we talked about the year that the first Public Image Limited record came out, and it was like the same year that the Pistols broke up.
Yeah,
which was 78, right? Like it was immediate.
Yeah, and it's like weird. Like it just seems like there was like no lag time at all. Like things were just like go, go, go.
Well, like when we talked about 1977, it immediately, like, that's the year the punk blew up, but it's also the year that post-punk started too. So it's like so we're already past punk, like within the first year of its explosion. Like it's funny how quickly, like in England, it feels like what was that like? Was that, it had to have been like a whirlwind, like 2-3 years, and like by the end of it, punk was over and everybody was into new wave. So
yeah,
it's just like strange how quickly it changed. And yeah, it's funny to look at lyrics that they're talking about. Yeah, they're already over with people in 1980.
The Clash had big hits off of London Calling by 79, you know, and in 1980 they put out like an overblown like triple album.
Well, London
like,
Calling,
all these
like long experimentations.
Yeah, too. It's a double album, you know.
Yeah.
But
yeah, so unless anybody has anything else they want to talk about with this record, we could probably give it a rating. I'm gonna give it a 3.25. I don't love the songs. I like the overall feeling of the songs. So like, it's 9 minutes long. It's over quick. It just kind of lays the groundwork, and they're really young. So like, I don't want to give it anything less than that because it doesn't seem fair. But yeah, that's kind of where I stand on it.
I would say they wrote better songs at 15 than I did. So yeah, they definitely deserve a lot of credit for that, and kind of really helped to kind of codify a genre, and that's pretty impressive. And I would say, like, if you're looking at 1980s DC hardcore, you know, I like this more than maybe the SOA demo, you know.
Yeah, maybe.
I would revisit this sooner, probably, but probably about a 3.5 for me, above average. But
I too will give it a 3.5 as well.
Yeah, well, cool. So next week, we are talking about the year 1978, and we got number 18 on the album charts, and it is The Clash, Give 'Em Enough Rope. Our EP is number 41, and it is the Suzannes with New Disease. And the Suzannes are a Danish or Dutch? I can't remember. Dutch or Danish. Apologies to people from Denmark and the Netherlands. So, anyway, that'll be next week.
They're Dutch.
Dutch, yes.
Dutch, okay. And tell us where we can go buy stuff.
Okay, thank you. And I'd like to say that is my favorite Clash album.
Okay. I am not a huge Clash fan, so that'll be an interesting one to talk about.
Yeah, I think it's great, and I don't really like London Calling that much. So.
Oh, good. I don't feel alone then. I always felt shameful to admit that I didn't like London Calling that much.
It's not. I don't understand the glory it gets. I think. No, I like the Clash. I'm not like a wild Clash fan either. And I know people are now writing to me now and yelling at me. I think they're lovely, but if I had to choose between the Sex Pistols and the Clash, I would choose the Sex Pistols every time.
Oh.
Yeah.
So my business is The Machine Shop, and my website is themachineshoprocks.com. And my social media mostly is all The Machine Shop Rocks. On Twitter, it's The Machine Shop, and that's really funny because there's like a rock club in Detroit called The Machine Shop, and people don't realize that that's not their Twitter, and I get tagged like crazy and funny weird posts all the time from that rock club of where LA Guns play there and stuff like that, and I constantly get tagged in posts. Hysterical. So but everywhere else it's The Machine Shop Rock on Instagram and on Facebook, and I do a lot of vending at punk rock flea markets in the New Jersey, Philly area. So if anybody is in that area, look for me.
Awesome. We'll include links in the show notes for this episode. And so, yeah, thanks a lot for doing the show. This was a lot of fun.
Oh, so much fun. I loved it.
Yeah. You had a lot of fun, unique insight, and we're definitely going to look forward to that fall playlist just so we can see what we're missing.
I'm writing myself a note, the fall.
Yeah, I mean, you're always welcome to come back, and we'd love to have you back. So
Thank you. Thank you. I would love to do it again.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, it was great to get to talk to you and meet you. You've pretty much only talked to Justin so far. So
yeah, online, yeah.
Cool.
But yeah, it was a lot of fun. Well, I guess that'll do it for this week. Like I said at the top, we're on all social medias at PunkLottoPod. And I guess we'll talk to you next time.
Cool. Bye.
Stop.
Yeah, I didn't like that album I got the other day.
What?
The record.
Oh, the record.
Yeah, I thought it was a little too,
Too hip, maybe?
yeah, a little too hip.